Is it running? Okay. Notley and Safrai translated Mehilta of Rabbi Ishmael, Tractate Shira Beshala, Parsha 7, Horovitz 141 as follows. A parable. They may have fudged on this next part. To what may the matter be compared? There's the fudge. Anyway, they go on to say, to a robber who stood behind the king's palace and said indignantly, if I find the prince, I will seize him, kill him, crucify him, and make him suffer the most cruel death. So Pharaoh stood and spoke indignantly in the land of Egypt. I will pursue, I will overtake, I will drive the spoil, or divide the spoil. Of course, that last part's a play on Exodus 15:9. And it goes on and says, but the Holy Spirit mocked him and said concerning him, you blew with your wind, the sea covered them. That's a quote from Exodus 15:10. Then it says, you stretched out your right hand, which is a quote from 15:12. So what just happened? Well, the Rabbi who wrote this text just called the Torah the Holy Spirit. It is, of course, the text that mocked Pharaoh. Did you catch it? I will divide the spoils, Pharaoh said. And it went on and said, but the Holy Spirit mocked him and said, you blew with your wind, the sea covered them. Exodus 15:10. The Holy Spirit is the Torah. Anywho, please stand and cover yourselves for the reading of our scriptures today. All right. We begin this week with Shemot, which is also called Exodus 12, verse 7. We're going to go all the way through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We're going to go to 11. Here's verse 7. Ve'lahu min hadam ve'natnu al shitei ha-mezuzot, mezuzot, mezuzah in plural, ve'al hamashkaf al ha-batim asher yochlu oto bahem. Verse 8. Ve'achlu et ha-basar ba'layla, that's in the night, hazeh zeliesh u mazot, matzah, mazot al merorim yochluhu. Verse 9. Al tochlu mimenu na uvashel mevushal ba'mayim, in the waters, ki im zeliesh rosho al ke ra'ayv ve'al kirbo. Verse 10. Ve'lo totiru mimenu ad boker, there's the morning, ve'ha notar mimenu ad boker, there's the morning again, ba'esh tish rofu. Verse 11. Ve'haha tochlu oto ma'tenechem haburim na'alechem be'rag lechem u'makelchem be'yedchem va'achaltem oto be'chipazon Pesach, Pesach, Passover, hula Yahweh. All right, you may be seated. Keep my little feet warm. All right, so our first verse is Shemot. It's Exodus 12:7. And literally in English, it's, and take they from the blood and give they upon to the doorposts and upon the lintel, upon the houses, that he eat they it in them. Right? So if you did a translation like this, it wouldn't mean much to you. But to tell you the truth, if somebody would give you a translation like that, which I think somebody actually has, But if you had a translation like that, it would actually help your mind to begin to think more in the realm of Hebrew rather than English, because you'd have to think more like a Hebrew speaker to understand these words, right? So it would be good for you. We begin with Belahu. And by the way, those of you who don't understand why I read the way I do, I read it that way so that the student who is new to Hebrew, who is struggling with Hebrew, can make out the words and understand them and learn to pronounce them. Because as you pronounce them faster, they'll come out a little differently. But this is to help the student. Anyway, so we start with Velahu, which literally is and take they. And they will take, the way we would say it. To take, to stick together, to adhere, to take for oneself, especially to take a wife. To take, IQ, to take away, to send after, to fetch. You know, so you can, if you fetch somebody, if you send for somebody, you're taking them to yourself. If, of course, they show up. If they don't, well, not so much. Anyway, to receive someone is to take them into your presence. If you're speaking privately with somebody, it's to take them into your confidence. You get what I'm saying? It's to take. It's like to stick together. It's to adhere. It's like glue. It's a get the idea that it goes together. So then we have mean. Mean is generally translated as from. It is a part taken from the whole. So if you have a pie and somebody chops it up in little pointy pieces, or what would you call that? Little sections, slices, and you eat a slice and the rest is there. Your slice is that part that was taken from the whole. Anyway, of course you know what that word means. Then this is hadam. Now that's the blood, right? Dam is blood, which is of course where we get the word Adam. Mankind, because they have blood flowing through them. Anyway, blood from its red color. Blood is used especially for bloodshed, for slaughter, and for guilt contracted by killing. Blood of the grape is used of wine. Why? Because of its red color. Now, if you're eating grapes that are green, maybe not so much. Okay, I've got a note in here. It says, and they shall take some. We'll put the word some because it's the word mean or from. They will take some of the blood. They will take from the blood. So you see how I can say some instead of from? Because it's the same thing. You're taking that part from the whole, so you're taking some. And they shall take some of the blood. This is the receiving of the blood from the animal's neck immediately after the slaughtering. That, by the way, that note comes from the Mechilta. Our next word is venatnu. Told you I'd say a lot today. Anyway, inside thing there. Venatnu. And give us. It's to give, to cause, to receive, to give the hand to the victor. So if you lose, you've given them the victory. You really earned it, right? So it's not really. Anyway, to deliver into the power of anyone. So if somebody is, say, in state custody and now they're being handed over to federal custody, they have been given into the hand of someone else. They've been given into the power or authority of someone else instead of those who are given into the hand of someone. Anyway, so that's what they get the word give. The main thing about give in Hebrew is that you can say, I'm going to give you a boatload of money. But if you don't send a boat full of money, then you've not given a boatload of money because it's to cause to receive. I'll never forget this guy telling me that he was going to give our ministry a boatload of money. And he had this little camera bag stuffed full of money. He said there was 20,000 or whatever it was in cash in that thing. And so he showed it to me. Of course, I reach out. I'm happy to receive his gift. And he's like, oh, I'll give it to you some other time. Why not now? We're here right now, right? I never saw him again. He forgot the part about causing me to receive it. Anywho, So you can say you're going to give somebody something, but until they receive it, you haven't given them anything. Just saying. Our next word is all. That means on or upon, something that is built on something. So if you pour a slab, you build a house and place it on the slab, right? When you're building a house, it's built upon the slab, and then the slab is its stratum, and it's the foundation, if you will. So this word is used mostly in terms of foundation, something that is set upon something. Then we have shite. That means two, not piece man, but two, as opposed to one. All right, so then we have ha mezuzot. So that's the doorpost. It's not a small little mezuzah. See, here's the thing that's been lost over time. People get these little things they call the mezuzah, and if you say it plural, it's mezuzot. And they put these little things on their doors, and they go by and they touch their hand to their lip, and they kiss their hand, and they touch the menorah, which is strictly forbidden by the law of God, by the way. You do not touch your hand to the idol, and that's literally what it means. Kiss your hand, touch it to the idol. That is strictly forbidden by God's law. But it's something that most Jews do because they don't know what God's law actually says. So, the funny thing is, though, the blood's supposed to go on the doorpost. That's what mezuzah is. It's a post, a doorpost, very specifically. Mezuzot are doorposts. The blood went on the post, not on the little thingy that they stick on the door now. Just saying. Then it says ve'al, and upon, to place it on something else, hamashkof, the lintel. That's the board that goes across the top. We call it a header now. Well, no, the header, I guess, is never seen. It's hidden. I don't know. In a log cabin, you'd see the header. That's what they're talking about, is the board that goes across the top of your door. Whatever board that is, whatever piece of trim, whatever, that's where you would put it, because that's the lintel of your door. So you put it on the two side posts. If you don't have posts, it's going to be the trim, because nowadays we do it a little bit differently then, but it's still the same idea. So you put it on the two sides and above, and then it says on all, or on ha batim, on the house. So on the houses, it's house in plural. So you're going to put it, every man who wants to be covered by the blood of God's sacrifice, the blood of the lamb, if you will, to sound real Christian there, because they stole all that from Judaism, right? So it's, to a Christian, they're going to say, hey, that's on the New Testament. And actually, it came from the Hebrew Bible. But anyway, so if you're going to put the blood of the lamb, it goes on the two side posts. It goes on of all the houses of the people who want to be covered by, protected by, if you will, that blood. So of God's sacrifice, its houses. And of course, in their world, their houses were, some of them were stationary. If you're still in Egypt, right? You had stationary housing, as far as we know. It looks like from the archaeological digs, they had an awful lot of them. We don't know if that's where the Jews were, or if they were out in the field in a movable house. It wouldn't really matter. Whatever your house is, it doesn't sound very movable if it has doorposts and a lintel, but then who knows, right? I think this is more about a stationary house. But anywho, it goes on and says, Asher, that's that, or which. That's all it really means. Then it's Yochlu, they will eat. It is to eat, to devour. It is used not only of men, but also of animals. So because animals eat, bugs eat, for that matter. You can use it for that. It's just to eat. It's what you think of. You're eating food. And then it says, Oto, he will eat. Ultimately, it's it. He will eat it. What is it? It's the sacrifice, the lamb. Bahem, in them. They will eat it, the lamb, in them, in the house. Remember, Beto, the houses, they will eat the lamb in the houses. All right, so here's the translation. Remember, it's Shemot, or Exodus 12:7. And they shall take the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost, the lintel of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. Again, it is, of course, the lamb. So the law is that every Jewish/Torah observant family will smear the blood from the lamb on the doorposts, left and right, and the lintel, the upper post, not the little thingies that you kiss and touch, and don't not that mezuzah, but the actual doorpost mezuzah. But they'll do it immediately after they kill the lamb on the evening of the 14th of Aviv, or also called Nisan, of the house where they will eat the lamb. You do it where you're going to eat it. You don't go and spread it like they did in the movie on other people's houses. Anyway, we have to keep in mind that this law was for that particular Pesach, because the law was given in Egypt. So you have the law of Pesach that's given while they're in Egypt. Now, this is the very first Pesach. So there's rules that are going to change after they leave Egypt. But these are the rules for Egypt. Now, the way we can apply it is we can hang some red cloth above and on each doorpost if we want to apply that to our life in some way. I wouldn't suggest taking blood and putting it on your doorpost. You're going to have you'll never get rid of the flies, right? You're going to have a problem from now on. But hey, if you're doing that, if you really have a lamb and you really slaughter the lamb and all of that, you want to put that on your doorpost, you better make sure that that's legal, because if you live inside the city limits, that may actually be illegal and you can go to jail for it. And it's just not worth it, because remember, this is the law for the first Pesach. It doesn't mean that we can't do these things. It's just that this is the ones for the first Pesach, because you're not commanded to do this after that. This was a one-time thing. But if you want to commemorate it in some way, is what I guess I'm saying, then you can just put, like a red silk ribbon on the top and two on the side. It'd be kind of neat. Or you can use red paint if you want to do that. Okay, so let's move on to Shemot, or Exodus 12:8, the next verse. Now, literally in English, it says, and eat they, and then there's a pointer, it, the flesh in night, this, roasted, fire, and unleavened on bitter herbs he eat it. Okay. Well, you can kind of get it, if you really think about it long enough, you can kind of understand it this way. You really need to, at some point, kind of learn to think of it in this term. Let me look at something real quick. There's a green book. I don't have it here. Maybe we'll do that next week if I can remember. I have a book that I think does this. I'm going to have to check. I haven't looked at this book in years, but I think it actually does this. Anyway, so it's ve'achlu is our next word, and eat they. So they will eat. It's what you think of. They're going to eat the food. They're going to, cut it up with a little knife and fork and eat it. Remember, eat with your mouth shut. Don't talk while you've got food in your mouth. Anyway. Then it's et, that's a pointer. It doesn't really have a meaning, but it points to something. And what's it pointing to? Habasar, the flesh of the animal, that is. Flesh, denoting the exterior skin. Metaphorically, the human race is called flesh, right? The flesh of a living body, whether men or beasts, the skin itself is called flesh. You know what flesh is. Now, there was a note in the Mechilta that said the flesh, but not ligaments or bones. I don't know why that was so important, but they felt they needed to say that. Our next word is balayla. That's in the night. Kasuto said that night, the evening of the 15th. That night, the evening of the 15th. Because the 15th, remember, your slaughter is on the 14th. And the 15th starts when the sun goes down. So it's the evening, so it's that same night. Then it says, who's there? The this, on this night. Then it says, zeli, roasted, something that is roasted. What does roasted mean? I don't really know. Cooked, fired, what? Has to be over fire. We'll just put it that way. Could be in an oven though, because that was certainly the same thing, because you're cooking it with fire, in other words. Then it says esh. And remember, esh is the Hebrew word that mimics the sound of fire. Esh, like the sound and the crackling of a fire. It's fire. It's the fire of God, often used of lightning because they saw it as fire. Figuratively used of the anger and the wrath of God. You know what it's like. Probably everybody that's listened to me has been fiery mad before, right? So you get the idea. There's a grammar rule that doesn't apply here, but I'll point it out. When they're talking about persons or God as a person, they changed the word from fire to passion. So when God was red hot, fiery, angry, they would say that his passion was, I don't know how we would have to say his passion. It was like a passionate fire. We'd have to use both words to get the same idea. All right, so then it says umatzot and matzahs, to butcher it bad. What is sweet, especially sweet, in other words, unfermented bread, such as is used at the Passover, opposed to the leavened bread and unleavened cake. It's unleavened bread. That's what matzah is. And matzot is plural. So are they saying that you have to eat a whole bunch of different breads? No, remember, this part is going to go on forever. So it's going to be written in the plural. Okay. Then we move on to the next word, which is all in Hebrew. It means honor upon. That's that word that's built on the foundation. So the matzot, you're going to eat it on merorim, bitter herbs. Onkelos said, it is possible that the singular is used in this case because this is a note in the Onkelos, I should say, by the translator. It is possible that the singular is used in this case because only one piece of matzah had to be consumed. So he's right, because Onkelos used the singular to indicate that, you didn't have to eat a whole bunch of bread. You don't have to eat a bunch of different breads. It's just that it goes on forever is why it's in plural. So Onkelos, when he translated it, he put it in singular. Okay, so then we have Yochluhu. Literally, that's he will it. He will eat it. Yes, he will eat it, literally. It's to eat, to devour. It's what you think of. You're going to eat that matzah with the bitter herbs. And by the way, that's in plural. So, again, it can be done singular because it means it goes on forever. Or if you want to take it literally, then you should eat at least 2 different kinds of unleavened bread, and you should eat at least 2 different kinds, because that makes it plural, right? If it's 2 or more, you should eat 2 different kinds of the bitter herb. Or you can understand Hebrew grammar and do 1 of each, and you're covered, as long as you do it forever. All right, so here's a translation of Shemot, Exodus 12:8. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, that very night, that same night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread with bitter herb, they shall eat it. I'm going to say it in the singular. Casuto said, an anticipatory allusion to the eating of bitter herbs is already found in the previous narrative. And so he's going to point us back to chapter 10, verse 14, which basically says, and made their lives bitter with hard service. So the Egyptians made the lives of the Jews bitter with the hard labor, right? So he's connecting that to the reason why God tells them to eat the bitter herb with their matzot, right? So the law basically is that every Jewish or Torah observant family will eat the roasted lamb at night, Lila, at night. That's part of it. Then the other part of the law would be that every Jewish or Torah observant family will eat unleavened bread with the Pesach meal. Another law would be every Jewish or Torah observant family will eat bitter herbs with the Pesach meal. The idea of adding an egg to the Pesach meal comes directly from the worship of Ishtar, also known as Easter, the fertility goddess. It does not matter what spiritual significance the sages used to justify this practice. It is idol worship. This is the worst kind of blasphemy in which people participate. Stop doing this now. People probably would not be so scared of sacrifices if we started calling them a barbecue. So maybe we should think about that. Let's call our sacrifices barbecues. So how do we apply this? Well, we can grill or smoke our meat in that day, or after the sun goes down, we can grill and smoke it then. So you are going to eat it late, so you should have finger food. I'm just saying. Now, verse 9 literally says, "Not shall eat they from out of they, raw and boiled from boiled in water, for it roasted fire head he upon leg his and upon middle part." Okay, that was a little harder to understand. But it starts off with all, which in this case is a sound-alike word. It's been upon, it's the foundational, but it's also used of the negative article, no or not. And that's the way it's being used here. It's tochlu, shall eat they, to eat, devour. So it starts off, they will not eat. They will not, no, what? He just told us they had to eat. But they will not eat me menu, from out they. They will not eat any part of it, if you will. Then it says not, raw, half cooked, used of flesh, used only in this verse. Onkelos said, according to the Babylonian Talmud, Pesachim 41a, even meat that was lightly roasted could not be eaten. You had to cook it all the way through was the point. Pseudo said, according to the ancient custom, the flesh of the spring sacrifice was eaten raw or half boiled. So Casido was basically trying to connect this to the traditions of the time, particularly in the area of Egypt. When they had their spring festival, they would slaughter their animals and they would eat them rare, right? Let's just put it that way. They eat them rare. And so he was trying to say, well, God said do it this way so that they wouldn't do it their way. No, God's way has been right since long before they ever did it. So God's not trying to correct the way pagans do things. He's not trying to keep us from doing things the way pagans do things. Because there are times when God tells us to do things exactly the way the pagans do it because they happen to be doing it what we like to call the right way. So God's not trying to correct anything pagan. It's just that this is the way God says to do it because obviously it's the right way to do it. So they're not going to eat it. It says ubashel and boil. They won't eat it boiled. You cannot cook it in water. You cannot boil it in oil. You have to cook it in fire. You know, there has to be a fire going here. It can't be submerged in a liquid is what I'm saying. Then it says mebushal, to be cooked, ripened, to be cooked with fire, ripened. So again, you can't fill a pot with water, stick your little meat in there and put a fire under it because you say, well, but there's a fire. Right. No, it has to be in contact with the heat and the fire, or the heat or the fire, because if it's in an oven, it's going to only be in contact with the heat, if you will. Still okay because it's being cooked with the fire, the heat from the fire. Because if you think about it, you don't really cook meat in a fire, right? You cook it above a fire. So it doesn't matter if it's in an oven or if it's an open fire, as long as it's cooked by that fire. But you cannot stick it in something and let that boil. Then it says, Bamayim, you can't boil it in the waters. This is ki, which means for, because, im, because if, zelim, if it's roasted, if it's cooked with esh, with the fire. Oh, that's going to be more confusing, I think, than what he's saying. This is the way to do it. You're going to cook it, and it says rosho. You're going to cook it with, now if we take it literally, it's going to be the head, right? The head, and it says on kera'ai, on his legs, with the head on his legs, and on kirbo, on the middle parts. Okay. So it sounds like it's saying you got to take this animal and you have to cook it uh, from head to feet and everything in between. So some people do that. They leave the head on it, they leave the feet on it, they leave the intestines in it. Although the sages say, who follow things literally and don't get the idiomatic language because they're Hellenized, they went in and said, well, so you take out the intestines and you clean them and then you put them back in there. Ew! Come on, people. He's saying you cook it all the way through, from top to bottom and through in the middle. You know what I'm saying? That's what's being said here. So our translation of verse 9 is, do not eat it raw, nor boiled in water. That's the first thing you got to know. You don't eat it raw, and you don't, and by raw, I mean rare. Don't do it rare, and don't boil it in water, but roast it with the fires of hell and damnation. Cook the thing from the top to the bottom and all the way through. There's your translation. So the law is basically, do not eat the Pesach lamb raw or boiled in water. And another law would be cook it from top to bottom and all the way through. So how do we apply it? We cook the thing. And it doesn't have to be charbroiled. I mean, what am I saying? It doesn't have to be crispy. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be black and crispy on the outside. That's not what God is saying. God is saying cook the meat all the way. It cannot be bloody. Verse 10. Literally in English, it's, and no leftover they from out of they until morning. Remain from out of they until morning in fire burn. I think if you thought about this one long enough this way, you get it. It's funky, doesn't it? It says velo, and not. And not. That's all it means, the negative article. So don't do this. To, ti, ru. None of it. None of it. Not. None. You know what I'm saying? The negative article. None of it shall remain. To be redundant, that which is left over. There cannot be leftovers. None of it will remain. Mimenu, from out of it. No part of it. You can't take a little slice and wrap it up and stick it in the freezer. No part of it will remain. Odd, which is the Hebrew word for until. Until what, Boket? It won't you cannot have any, no, if the sun's coming up, it better be gone. All of it, no part of it can be left over. The hanotar, wow, I don't know where that came from. The hanotar. Believe me, that was not what I said the first time. And the remainder, whatever's left, so, sometimes it's going to be leftovers, right? This is going to be something redundant. And from that until boker, the morning, you'll do what? You'll ba'esh, you'll put it in the put it in the fire. Now you're going to fire it. Now you're going to char it. Now you're going to cook it until there's nothing left. Before morning. And this is tish rofu, shall burn he. You'll burn it. To consume it. There's even a note in here, used at the burning of a corpse at the funeral. So a burning like the baking it in the bricks of an oven. Those things are all part of the meaning of this word, but you're going to burn it is to the very best that you can. You're going to burn it until it's gone. So here's the translation. Remember, we're on Shemot, or Exodus 12:10. And you shall let none of it remain to the morning. And that which remains of it in the morning you shall burn with fire. And I should probably say before the morning you shall burn with fire. The law, in other words, all leftovers are to be burned with fire before the morning. So if you eat your meal, say around 10 o'clock at night, because it will be at night, by the way. Remember that. You don't cook it till the sun's already gone down. It's going to be kind of late before it gets cooked. Well, if you cook it the way I do, that takes a while. But so you eat it late, you're like, oh, it's so good, I want some more a little bit later on. You can, at 12 o'clock, you can eat some more. 2 o'clock, you can eat some more. Sure, you can do all that. But before that sun comes up, you need to burn it. I learned a lesson years ago. The first time we realized we needed to do something with the leftover, we need to go burn it and do something, before the sun came up. Myself and one other guy, we went over to his house and we put it in his little fire pit, and he started up a fire. I really thought he was going to burn the entire city of Austin down. Oh my goodness, what a fire. That guy really got one going. And it was scary because the flames were going up into the trees. But fortunately, no one got harmed in the burning of this. And as that leftover lamb was burning, I was reminded of the night that Abraham entered into this covenant with God. And this is obviously Abraham comes way before this Passover. But when he entered into the covenant, it says that it was dark. And then all of the offering was put on the fire. And normally, or put on the altar, normally before the meat was cooked, the stronger partner, which is, they don't mean somebody's actually stronger, it just means the initiator in ancient Hebrew. So the initiator of the covenant would pass through, and if the initiator was excited, the initiator would reach down and dip his hands in the blood and splash it on himself, rub it on himself. It'd be pretty bloody by the time he got through. And so then the acceptor, the weaker partner, that's just how they pointed out who was the initiator and who was the acceptor. You had the stronger and the weaker. So the weaker partner, if he was excited about it, or she, it didn't matter if it was men or women, anybody could make a covenant. And so whoever it was would come through there, and if they were excited about it, they'd start dipping into the blood, do the same thing, right? But that process is where we get the terminology being washed in the blood. But when Abraham did it, there was something different. God, being the stronger partner, being the initiator of the covenant, went through it first. But God was so excited about entering into a covenant with mankind that, well, when he went through it, he consumed everything and there was nothing left for Abraham to go through. And I believe that that's what we're supposed to connect this with. We're supposed to be able to see that God has passed through that sacrifice. And this is us seeing it, if you will, a visual way of seeing God consuming that sacrifice right before our eyes. It's a beautiful thing. So, the way we apply this is we can get a smoker. We can fill it with charcoal or wood, and we need to burn the leftovers. This is a great opportunity to get together in a less formal fashion after the meal to let the rabbi teach us all why this is done. I've kind of given the secret away, but maybe it'll make you want to come to the next one. All right, so then our last verse is Shemot, or Exodus 12:11. Literally it says, and thus shall eat they it Waist them, belts, sandals them, and feet them, and rod them, and hand them, and eat you it in hurry, Pesach it to Yahweh. Again, another one that you can kind of get that way if you think about it long enough. It starts off with vehaha, and thus, and it will be, and thus, and so. That's all that really means. So this is tochlu. The take in the front of it makes it, it's a command, shall eat. Literally it'd be shall eat he, or shall eat it. He and it and Hebrew are the same word. We say it, and in English that word has no gender. It can be masculine, it can be feminine. But in Hebrew, because it's a gender specific language, you have two words for it. You have the word that is translated as he in English, and the word that is translated as she in English. And this is where so much of the translation is wrong, because they'll write the word he instead of it when it should be he, or they'll write the word it when it should have been he. But the worst part is when you get to the Christian Bible, they took the word that should have been it and they translated it he, and then someone came in after the fact and capitalized the H on the word he. And so now it becomes God. And wow, does that ever mess some theology up? It's a shame, but that's what happens. So here we have an example of this where they've added the he onto the end of it, and it means it. It's the masculine because this part of the sentence is in the masculine. So, and besides the fact that your lamb has to be a male, it cannot be a female. So, of course, it's going to be in the masculine. So, he will eat it, or they will eat it, rather. They are commanded, you're going to do this. You shall eat this. You shall devour it. You shall consume it all. Or all that you can eat anyway. Oto, there's it. It's just a pointer. The it part of it is a pointer, but they put the word for he or it on the end of it. You shall eat it. Ma tenehem. Ma tenehem. That's hips them. They call it loins in the older Bibles. The loins, the lower part of the back, so called from the idea of strength, right? Your hips. Then it says ha gurim, girded. What? Got to wear a girdle? No. You got to put a belt on your hips, and it's got to be, tight. It's got to be. In their day, a belt would have been a rope. You take this rope and tie it up. Because I'm going way back. Remember, this is a long way back. This first Pesach. So that would have most likely been a rope, and they would have tied it up. And that's all it's saying. Get that belt on there and get it tight. That's all it means. Then it says ba'alechem, your shoes. You can say sandals. Sure, you could say sandals, but that was their shoes back then. Well, not for everybody. Some people just had leather wrapped around their feet. Either way, it was their shoes, right? So shoes can be anything that you wear on your feet. And so it says your shoes. Here's a note that I thought was interesting in the Gesenius. In transferring a domain, it was customary symbolically to deliver a shoe, as in the Middle Ages, a glove. Hence, the casting down a shoe upon any country was a symbol of taking possession. Elsewhere, a shoe, they say thongs, as it's the strap. A shoe latchet and a pair of shoes is used for anything of very little value. Now, they give an example in Psalm 60:10. It says, upon Edom will I cast down my shoe. In other words, I will take possession of it as my own. Pretty cool, huh? Our next word is the raglechem, in feet of them, or with, they'll do this with their shoes on their feet, because this is your foot. The idea of moving to be in the footsteps of anyone, to follow after their footsteps. It's on your feet. Then it also says, umakechem, and staff them, literally. So it's, and their staff, a rod, properly a twig from a tree. It can be a cane. That can be a, because it was used to steady yourself with. I think what would be good is if you got on Google and you looked up. I'm not sure how you would look this up, but in Africa, you see these guys with these long, skinny sticks, and they'll stick the stick in the ground, and they'll actually lean on that stick. It's something they can lean on. This is what we're talking about, and this is how they used those things back then. So they tended to be skinnier, but man, they were strong. And there was something for them to lean on. But it was also something, because the land in Israel and in the surrounding area, very rocky, very unlevel, very uneven, unstable grounds around there. So people tended to use these sticks to help them get around. That's why I'm saying the cane can be used, because it is used for the same purpose. It's just a short one. It doesn't say it had to be a long one. It just says use your staff. So if you normally have a cane that you use, that is your actual staff. You should use your cane, I think. But if you don't have one, of course, what we do is we have a whole bunch of them that we bought from a guy one year. He made them out of twigs from trees and whatnot. And so we always have some here for people to use if they don't have them. But you're supposed to have your belt on. You're supposed to have your shoes on. And if there's laces on them, the laces should be tied. And then you're supposed to have a staff of some sort. If it's a cane or a stick, it doesn't matter. But it needs to be something you can actually lean on. Don't just go get some, clipping off of a tree and pretend that it's a rod or a staff. Get a real one. You know, get a thicker one that's long enough for you to hang on to, and trim the little pieces off if you need to. But you can get this. Almost anybody can get this in their own yard or their neighbor's yard or somewhere close. If you don't have that, if you're a city dweller and don't have that, you need to plan ahead and make sure you have this. Then it says be'yedchem. So the rod needs to be in your hand. So if you're left-handed, hold it with your right hand so that you can eat. If you're the other way around, do it this way. I'm just saying. This is ba'echaltem. They will eat. So they're going to make sure their belt is tied, their shoes are on, and there's a rod in their hand, and then they're going to eat the flesh, the meat of the sacrifice. It. Oto again, the it. But they're going to do it, it says, mehi pazon, hurriedly. You're going to be in a rush when you eat this. You're going to be cramming it down as fast as you can. So I suggest you get a small meal. Well, I don't know. As long as you're eating in a hurry, you can eat as much as you want to, I suppose. You just have to keep eating in a hurry. All right, so the meal's supposed to be eaten in a hurry. Again, these are the rules, if you will, for the first Pesach. Maybe they do apply to the next, maybe they don't. We are going to find out. So then the next word is Pesach, Passover, in unity, if you will. A sparing, immunity from penalty and calamity. A sacrifice offered on account of the sparing of the people, the Pesach lamb used of Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim, or Egypt, when he smote the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, the day of the Passover, the 14th day of the month of Aviv, or Nisan as it's also known, which was followed by the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. Just saying. Then we have the word who. That's the word that's either he or it, right? Then it says la Yahweh. To Yahweh. Yahweh is the proper name of God, as I pronounce it. Kasuto said this: it is Yahweh's Pesach. And that's what it said. It was Yahweh's Pesach. So is it the Jews' Pesach? No. Is it the Christians? Certainly not. It's Yahweh's Pesach. In order to understand this, Pseudo said, we must assume that apparently Passover was already an established and previously known term, just as Shabbat was a well entrenched and familiar word prior to the Torah's injunction concerning the observance of the seventh day. And in the same way as the Torah gave a new form and meaning to the Shabbat day, sanctifying it to the Lord, it is the Lord's Shabbat. So he's comparing this verse to Leviticus 23:3. Now they'd had the Shabbat from the beginning of time. They knew what it was. And in Leviticus 23:3, God is saying it is his Shabbat, right? And here in Exodus, he's saying this is his Pesach. So Pseudo says that Pesach had been around all along, and God's reiterating, saying that this is his Pesach. He goes on and says, so the Bible also gave to the Pesach festival, as we have seen, a new aspect and significance, and dedicated it to Yahweh. It is Yahweh's Pesach. I don't know if I agree with this, but I think it's a very interesting thought. So our translation then, as we're coming to the end here, of Shemot 12:11, and thus shall you eat it, with your belt tightened, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in a hurry. It is Yahweh's Pesach, Yahweh's Passover. So the law, there's several in this one, eat the Pesach meal, of course, with a belt tied around your waist, shoes on your feet, a staff in your hand, and eat it hurried. Right? Those can be thought of as separate laws or all the pieces and parts to the law. A sparing and immunity from penalty and calamity. That's what Pesach means, right? So we're celebrating God's sparing of that calamity. We can apply it easily. We can gather a staff from, from a backyard. If you live like in a place like where I live, you can get them right in the backyard. Or you can go to somebody else's yard and get them, or you're going to have to go somewhere and buy something. So that's how you're going to apply it. You got to get for yourself a staff, unless you're going to our synagogue and know that we're going to have one here for you. And if we run out, we'll go outside and get us a few. Don't worry about it coming here. But if you're not coming here, you need to have staff. You need to get this done ahead of time, because you don't want to be milling around in the woods at night while, when the nocturnal things like snakes are out running about. Just saying, plan ahead. So you get this stick from someone's land, if that's what you're going to do, or you purchase it from the store, whatever you have to do. Be mindful of chiggers and allergens and wild animals if you're going to do it out in the woods. Then get some jute, that's rope, for your belts if you want to do it the old style, or just get a belt. It doesn't matter if it's a new belt or if it's just rope. We like the rope because it's the way Moshe would have done it back then. Then you need some gunny sacks for shoes if you're going to go all out, right? Or some sandals, some with the leather straps. The kids will love it, and their children will too. Get them involved in this. It'll be fun for the whole family. All right, we have run out of time, and we've covered all 5. Shalom, Shalom.